Hi there, everyone. Welcome to this Tuesday edition, Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. I'm Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Sal Maiorana, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. What is this for you, Sal, a Tuesday? Is this, it's typically, when I was full-time as the sports director, this would be a day off for me.
Yeah.
Is it for you?
Usually it is, but in this world we live in today, I mean, I've always got to be doing something to get ahead. So, um, being that I had a dentist appointment and a doctor appointment this morning, I had to get all my stuff done on Monday. So this ended up being a day off, except for my wonderful time with you here
Yeah, I
this
know.
afternoon. But in general, today is a day off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it's a highlight for you. I know it
Yes, it
is.
absolutely is.
Um, Okay, so when was it? Was it a week or two ago when it was toward the end of one of our post-game shows and I had just talked about Kansas City had lost and I had talked about how things were sort of setting up for the Bills and that the one seed, you know, um, was as attainable as ever. And you kind of, were like, "Hey, put the brakes on or whatever." And I get that. Um, Are you still telling me to? I know you're probably telling me to put on the brakes today too, but maybe just not press as hard, right?
Just don't, yeah, you could maybe let off just a little bit. But look, Adam, we just reached the quarter pole of the
Right.
season. There's so much that is left to be that will still happen in this season. Knock on wood, the Bills have had a couple injuries to some, two key guys on defense, and they've been able to plow right through without any problem. Most importantly, of course, Josh Allen and James Cook have been perfectly healthy. Spencer Brown missed a game, but what I'm saying is, in general, they've had pretty good luck with injuries so far, and they've won their games. They've done exactly what they needed to do. I think a lot of us probably had them 3-1 at this point. I mean, I know I picked Baltimore to win opening night, so
Right.
to be 4-0, it feels like you've stolen a game along the way here. So they're in great shape. And then, like you mentioned, Kansas City, you go around the league, it really couldn't have fallen any better the first month of the season. Even the Chargers losing to the Giants of all teams, they were the other unbeaten that was still left in the conference. They're now 3-1. Baltimore, I mean, my God, 1-3, and Jackson might be injured this week, so that's interesting. And now the Chiefs, I didn't like what I saw there, Adam. The Chiefs got past the Giants in week 3. They weren't great, and we're all thinking like, yeah, this team's just not very good. They're going to be, the Bills are going to be fine. Don't have to worry about them. But then they absolutely looked like the Chiefs on Sunday. They just buried Baltimore. So I think they're still going to be a team you're going to hear from. But in general, like we said at the start, 4-0, only unbeaten team in the conference, 2-game lead for now in the division. Yeah, it couldn't have gone any better for the Bills.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Chiefs. And how many times have we seen? And this is to your point about maybe putting the brakes on a little bit. And of course, I'm coming at you a little bit tongue in cheek there, but still, we've seen Kansas City and a team like that that's got so much experience and championship pedigree. You know, kind of get its act together as the season goes on. And we
Yeah.
all know, I mean, if you're a follower of football, you all know it's how you're playing in November and December, right?
The Chiefs
And
started.
ultimately
I think
January.
last year the Chiefs weren't great early in the year. They were kind of stumbling around. And really, they ended up getting it together. Obviously, they got the number 1 seed, but there was even some talk early last year, like, oh, this might be it for the Chiefs. Well, no, it wasn't, and that's exactly how I feel this year. They got Worthy back Sunday. He is a dynamic. I think they got the ball in his hands 10 times in that game. He makes a difference, and then they're going to get Rashee Rice back, who's
Mm-hmm.
probably their best receiver when his suspension's up. So that's a team you can't ever take the Chiefs out of the mix here. Andy Reid and Mahomes, they're going to figure it out. So they're going to be right there at the end. And you just hope that the Bills, when they do play them, whatever that is, November 2nd or 9th, whatever the day that game is, the Bills take care of business and get the tiebreaker on them. Then we can talk about, we'll be at the midway point by then. We'll have a much better idea of what the second half of the season might look like. But right now, I'm going to hold back. And I'll tell you what, these Patriots are not going to go down easy, Adam. I mean, people are already thinking, oh, yeah, Bills are 8.5-point favorites. That's a bad line. That's going to come down this week. I don't know what FanDuel has it right now, but I saw it yesterday at 8.5. That's a lot of points. I think the Patriots are going to come in here and be a tough out.
Yeah, the line we had on the show last night was 7.5.
Okay.
I can check FanDuel here as we continue on. Uh, Before we wrap up this show, we'll see where they have it. What I know about FanDuel and the point I wanted to make here, they've got the Bills as Super Bowl favorites where they have been, but they're plus 430 right now, ahead of the Eagles and the Lions. And since we are at the quarter point, right, maybe I'll just put it to you this way. Are the Bills, are they the best team in football? Are they playing the best of any team in football right now? And you know the point I'm going to get to because it gets into the defense a little bit here,
Yeah.
right? Which raises that question, makes that an interesting question. So what's your take on where things stand relative to the Bills being, they're not only legitimate contenders, they're favorites right now to win the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. Do they deserve that status based on the way the defense has played?
Well, I think they do because they've won their 4 games. Only one other team has won all 4 games so far, the Eagles over in the other conference. The Eagles have definitely had a harder road to go through to get to 4-0. They've beaten some good teams to get there. The Bills, beat the Ravens, but these last 3 games, they played 3 quarterbacks that just aren't very good. There was no doubt in my mind they were going to win them. So are they the best team in football, or are they playing the best football? I wouldn't say they are. The defense has been certainly spotty. And even offensively, Adam, people are going to say I'm nuts, which is nothing new. But when you look at the passing game, and I understand they've scored 30 points in every game, nobody should be complaining about anything. But look at the passing game and take the fourth quarter of the Baltimore game out of it, which of course you can't do. But if you do that, they've actually been a very ordinary team through the air. This wide receiver core that we talked a lot about in the offseason and then in training camp, is it going to be good enough? There's not a true number one. I think we're seeing that it is a somewhat ordinary group, right? I mean, Shakir's a nice player. Josh Palmer's been disappointing. Keon Coleman had the one big fourth quarter against Baltimore. He's been kind of nothing since, not a couple catches last week. And then he disappeared the whole last 3 quarters of the game. So are they playing the best football of any team in the league? The record says they are. I'm not sure they are. The defense has given up too many rushing yards. They've gotten how many turnovers, Adam? I think they got 1 turnover in every game, which they've lived off of, right?
Right.
I mean, they have to, it seems like, right? It seems like they have to get a turnover to have a good day on defense. And last week, if they don't get that turnover, the Saints are probably going in to take a lead at halftime, and who knows where that game goes after that. So I think the Bills, and I think McDermott recognizes this, that there's a lot of work to do on this football team. They have not been clean. They've won their games, but they haven't done it in the most cleanest of fashion. And there's more in there for the Bills to go get.
I would argue too the penalties were an issue, especially this week.
This past week they were sloppy operationally too, right? They wasted 3 timeouts in the game. Right. It was just a sloppy game, and in many ways they were lucky they were playing the Saints, because even though the Saints gave them a pretty good game, I mean, they played tough. They were coming off that horrible week 3 loss. You knew they were going to give a much better effort, and they did. And I got to say that if the Bills were playing a better team, if they had played the same way, they might not have won that game Sunday.
I would agree. There's no question about that. Rushing, Buffalo 31st in the NFL, giving up 164.3 yards per game. And I know the opener against the Ravens skews it, but it's there.
Yep.
Right?
Well, hey, 189 last week.
Right. And 189, that's what does it. That's what does it.
Right? He's 30 years old. He was ripping through the Bills like they were nothing. Kendre Miller, I'm not even sure who that is. He was finding space. Even Rattler, who's not a scrambler really, he was able to gash him for 50 yards. So it's just the same thing year after year with this Buffalo defense. And I guess you have to look at the scheme, because this has been a pattern for several years. They get gashed in the run, and they make just enough plays in the pass game. And then, as we've said over and over, they get turnovers that cover up some of the warts. But you just wish one of these years they can come out and just have a great run defense, but they never do. And I think part of the problem too, Adam, is they're an undersized defense,
Right.
right? I mean, they're just the linebackers are smallish players. Taron Johnson is one of their best run defenders, but he's a little guy. Ed Oliver's undersized inside. TJ Sanders is somewhat undersized. I mean, Deion Walker's a mammoth man, and so is Daquan Jones. They just don't have a lot of size and girth to defend against teams that can gash them up the middle. And it's been a thing for the Bills for years and years under McDermott.
That's it. They're not stout, right? And we had talked about, and the Eagles showed you in the Super Bowl, right? We've talked about this endlessly. I won't spend too much time repeating it now, but how that defense was built and what it did against Kansas City. And we know that the Bills, we talked about, and Deion Walker was a step in that direction,
Yeah.
right? But I think it's philosophical. I think McDermott likes it nimble and quick, right?
Yeah. Oh, he does.
And able to get, but I mean, so is he? This is a situation where I'm not going to say he's willing to live with 189 yards a game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the tackling was horse, you know what, man. I mean, so fundamentally there are some issues there, but you're right. Scheme, we talked about this. I mean, Vic pointed this out, Vic Carucci on the show last night, it's where he went with the two exact same place. This is something where, McDermott has to be careful not to be too critical because it's, he's the cook that put together the recipe here, right?
Yep,
and so it's something to some degree that I think they're willing to accept and live with based on other strengths on the team and other aspects of the defense and what it's able to do, being quick and mobile. Do you agree with that take?
Yeah, I do. I mean, this is the scheme that he's always had. They've played a little bit more three linebacker this year. What some people have been screaming for that, get a bigger body on the field, especially on the early downs, on the run downs. The problem with that, Adam, well, there's two problems right now because Maiorana was out. So now if you played three linebackers, which they have a little bit, now you've got two backups on the field with Dorian Williams and Shaq Thompson joining Bernard. But that also takes Taron Johnson off the field. And, Taron Johnson, they play base nickel for two reasons. He can cover in the slot. He's a good cover guy. Plus, he's really good against the run. So when you play three linebackers, it's generally him who's coming off the field. Do you really want to spend, half of your defensive snaps with Taron Johnson on the sideline? I would argue not, because, well, obviously teams are going to find the tendency and they'll start throwing, get Shaq Thompson and Dorian Williams out there in coverage, and you can make some hay. So that's the dilemma the Bills are facing. It all goes back to the same thing we always talk about, Adam, defensive line. Everything starts up front. McDermott has said it ad nauseum. You've got to win the line of scrimmage. And there's just too many times that this defensive line gets gashed up front. And now you've got backs getting to the second level going against, especially if they can get blockers out, going against 220-pound linebackers or 190-pound nickel cornerback. That's a big issue. And the Bills have never been able to solve it. And they're not going to solve it until they start getting competent and big men playing in the middle of that defensive line.
From an offensive standpoint, we've talked about, Allen's maturation, all of those things. I thought, the 27-yard scramble and then the touchdown strike to Kincaid, that's what great players do in key situations.
That's
right. And
that's who he is, right? That's why they're so good, because he can do that. Go on, make your point, but that's why the Bills are the Bills.
And, there's a lot of positives to take from the offense. The production, 30-plus points a game speaks for itself. The aspect of the passing game, lack of downfield, we'll see how that plays out. They're extraordinarily efficient, we know that. But I think the running game is a huge aspect that makes them so tough to defend, right? Talk about James Cook living up to the contract extension. Boy, has he ever done that. And with his performance this week, 22 carries, 117 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown that makes him, 8 straight games franchise. That's a franchise record now. This is a guy, and the way he did it, Sal, in this particular game, to me was more impressive than the highlight reel run, that he has. Just between the tackles, hammering it out. He ran hard. And if they can do that, and that's what Spencer Brown out of the game, if they're able to do that and really cement that dimension into what they can accomplish offensively, I think that makes them even more difficult to defend, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the kind of game that you want to see from James Cook. I mean, it's great when he can rip off a 20 or 30 or 40-yard run. Those are great. But in this past game, especially, it was those 4, 5, 6-yard runs that always kept the Bills in a decent down and distance situation, except for the second quarter when, for whatever reason, he kind of went, Brady forgot about him. And it was a very, very strange second quarter of play calling and personnel use, and it cost them big time. Other than that, all day long, it was James Cook getting them in a situation where it was not going to say easy, but relatively easy on second and third down to keep a drive going. That's what you love. That's what the best backs in football do, Adam. Sure, it's great when Derrick Henry can truck 85 yards for a touchdown, but where Henry kills you is the other 20 carries that he's averaging 5 yards or 4 yards and a half, 4.5 yards a carry. Those are the ones that keep drives going and can just bury a defense. James Cook has been that guy so far for the Bills, or he certainly was in this last game. Now, that also brings up a point that I wrote about today. His usage is way up. And, this is what we said. If you're going to pay him that kind of money, then he needs to be on the field more. And he has been. He's played 60% of the snaps so far. But his touch count, Adam, he's got 87 touches in 4 games. His career high is 287. So he's already more than 30% of the way to his career high in touches. You just hope that he's going to be able to maintain that pace, not get hurt, and not wear down. And they're not getting anything from Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. That's something that they really need to look into, because it's not that I want James Cook off the field. Like, I was pissed off. We talked about it after the game, that sequence when they turn the ball over on downs and they're running Ray Davis and Ty Johnson when they're 2 points ahead in the game. I mean, come on, James Cook's got to be out there. But so far in 4 games, Davis and Johnson have not even earned the right to be out there. They have not played very well. So Bills have got to get that going. They need to get that running back by committee at least going a little bit here to save James Cook some wear and tear.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% too. Quick, I'm all over the place, offense, defense, but another topic I wanted to get to you. Let's project a little bit what you think might be happening at CB2. All right, second cornerback position. I thought it was interesting they put Strong in the game, right, to get some and with Hairston and everything else. I mean, what's your read on how that might play out moving forward?
Yeah, I think they're going to keep playing Dorian Strong. I think Trey White will continue to be, I think the snap counts were 50 to 15 maybe or something like that. So Trey White played the bulk of the game. But it was very obvious after he got the 2 holding penalties in the first quarter, Dorian Strong was right out there the next series. I think Strong played 3 series total, and I think they left him in for the entire series. In the 3, I think he did those 3 times. So that was good to see. I like a little bit of what I've seen from him. He's a willing tackler, which has been good. Spencer Rattler wasn't able to really test him all that much. They threw for 126 yards, whatever it was. I think this week will be a good test, because I think Drake May is playing pretty well. I think he leads the league, in fact, in completion percentage right now. They've got a couple of receivers that we know, Stephon Diggs and obviously Mac Hollins. Butte's been pretty good. Hunter Henry's been good for them. So I think this week we're going to get a much better feel, assuming that Dorian Strong does get some reps, of how he's actually doing against the Patriots.
All right, so let's go there right now. That's where I wanted to wrap this up today. 42-13 win for New England over Carolina. They are 2-2. Old friend Stephon Diggs, 6 receptions for 101 yards in that game. He's their leading receiver right now. I've been using him in the slot, but very effective for them in terms of the passing game. What's your take? Let's go big picture first. And by the way, I did check that. FanDuel's line is 8.5. Buffalo minus 8.5. So it's right in line with what you're referencing. Division opponent. I mean, I do think that this is, whether it's now or down the line, this is probably the team and organization that's going to rise up and challenge Buffalo. I don't know that it's this year, but in terms of the division supremacy. How far along are they, and what type of game do you expect on Sunday night?
Yeah, I think with Mike Vrabel, a veteran coach, no nonsense guy, they revamped their roster in a big way. Adam, they spent a lot of high picks on the offensive side, and then they revamped the defense in free agency with Milton Williams, a tackle, Carlton Davis. I think there's a few other guys, Harold Landry. They really upgraded their roster a lot. Last year, or really the last 2 years, New England's roster was one of the worst in football. I mean, they just had nobody, and they've got some big time players now playing for a veteran coach. You look at their season, Adam. They really should be 4-0. I mean, I don't know what happened in that Raiders game on opening day. Geno Smith threw for 360 yards. The Patriots only scored 13 points, and that was a home game. I don't know how they lost that game. And then the Pittsburgh game was ridiculous. They turned the ball over 5 times, twice inside the 5, and they lost by 7 points. They totally outplayed Pittsburgh. So really, they could be 4-0 coming in here. The Bills are kind of fortunate that they have a 2-game lead. So I think it's going to be a very tough game for Buffalo. I think Vrabel's coached against the Bills in the past when he had his time in Tennessee. He had success against Sean McDermott. He knows what the Bills are all about. If Drake May is as efficient as he's been so far, that's going to be problematic for, the Bills rank number 1 in pass defense, Adam. Does it feel like they should rank number 1? It really doesn't feel like it to me. It's just that they've played, and I'm counting Tua in this because Tua really did nothing in that game. They've played 3 bad quarterbacks in a row. So, that number 1 ranking is a little bit tenuous, especially when you look at the run defense being 31st. That's why teams aren't throwing against the Bills. I think the Patriots can do both things. They can run the ball pretty well. I'll be interested to see this Henderson, this rookie running back that they have. They haven't played him a lot yet. Ramondre Stevenson is still their number 1 guy, despite his fumbling trouble. But Henderson, that's the kind of guy that can, he can be a problem for the Bills. And maybe they unleash him this week against Buffalo's run defense. So, yeah, I've got this one being close and tight, and the Bills are going to feel really good if they can get past this team and get to 5-0, because it's going to be a struggle, I think.
All right, last point. I want to get to Stephon Diggs here a little bit, and let's revisit some history, if we can, and kind of look back on it. And, a lot, and as you would expect, was made when they dealt him, when they moved on from Diggs. And I felt, and I think you did at the time, that it was necessary. He had become a real pain in the ass and had lost a step, and they needed to move him out of there. Yeah. I think moving on from Diggs is a component, a part of Josh Allen's evolution and what he's become, actually. You can imagine, we knew this, we saw this. In between series, having a guy like that in your ear constantly or whatever, or far too often, right? I know they had a good relationship initially, but it obviously soured toward the end. Of the Cincinnati playoff game was, an example where it kind of reached its peak, the loss to the Bengals. So there's no question it was time to move on from Diggs. But is it worth, when he was at his best, is that what you feel, that element, that type of player? And Brandon Bean will roll his eyes at this. And, I struggle to make this point because of the production, but the dimension, the way they execute, as efficient, as effective as they are, distributing the ball to so many different targets. And Allen's really the maestro and the reason they can pull this off so effectively. Do they need that Diggs at his best or deep threat on the offensive side? Is that what you feel is lacking, I guess, when you evaluate their past game? Or do the players they have, are they just not at the level where they need to be?
No, I think they've got a good group of receivers, but they don't have the alpha, right? Right. Diggs was the alpha. And when I say alpha, in this Buffalo offense, the alpha would be a guy who would be willing to not be the 120 target receiver per season. He's got to fit in to what they're doing. But it would help the Bills if they had an actual threat in the receiving corps. I thought that Josh Palmer was going to be that guy. Not that he was going to be a burner down the field, but I really thought he was going to be a real threat in that intermediate range where the Bills have struggled a little bit. and he just hasn't been. He's been very, very quiet. I've been disappointed. He had a great play against the Ravens, and then the beautiful play from Trubisky in the Jets game. Other than that, he's done nothing. I want to say he has 3 catches for 15 or 20 yards the last 2 weeks, something ridiculous. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but it's not much. Keon Coleman, we've talked about him a million times. He is who he is. He is going to be an inconsistent player. I don't know that it's ever going to be much different with him. And then Shakir does what he does as well as anybody in the league. But there's nobody on that receiving core that really scares a defense. And I just think that if they had one of those guys, that would just make it, that would take the Bills to a new level. And I say that even though they're averaging 30 points a game. So we really shouldn't be bitching about this. But when you look for ways to fine tune the offense, that is one thing that you would look at and say, man, if they had that piece, this team would be almost unstoppable.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about winning a Super Bowl, right, which is what the conversation is, it's not winning the division at this point, right?
Right. They need someone to put them over the top, and they don't. I just don't see that player in that receiving core. It's not Dalton Kincaid. I mean, Dalton Kincaid wasn't even part of the game plan last week until he caught the touchdown pass. And I get it. Brady has done a great job with being able to get everybody involved, and everybody has produced, I think, to the level that we can expect them to produce too, except, maybe Palmer at this point. It's who these guys are. But you would love to have. I mean, in this coming draft, I would love if the Bills spent a first-round pick on a true stud receiver. Picking where they're picking, maybe that's not possible. But you'd like to get that player into Buffalo. I would love to see that. And again, it's not because they need someone to catch the ball 100 times like Diggs used to. Just get a guy who has a different skill set and can be more of a worry for the defense than what they currently have on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to key moments in playoff games, right? That's the conversation we're having here, and ultimately the Super Bowl. And, playmakers and dimension and ability to execute certain plays and those types of things and matchups or whatever. I do think the Bills are, they're greater than the sum of their parts. In other words, what they're able to do with that quarterback, with Allen, in distributing the football. They're very difficult to defend, and you add in the run game. But that deep threat, it's kind of a nitpick, maybe a little bit more than a nitpick or whatever. But I do think that's a legitimate discussion.
Yep.
All right. Agree. That is going to do it here on Believe in Bills. We're back on Thursday with a guest. We're still working to line up someone from the Boston area to get a deeper dive sort of take on the Patriots. But Sal, appreciate it as always, man. Enjoy having you on. Buddy. All right, that's going to do it for Sal Maiorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. I am Adam Benigni, WGRZ TV Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Thanks for being with us here on Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.